In this episode, Hayden explores the thick of Cam's career, competing against Magnussen, being part of one of Australia's strongest ever relay teams, and the intense 2016 training blocks, plus the coaches who still underestimated him. A lot unfolds here. Thank you for joining us. Let's jump in.
I'm Hayden McEvoy, founder of A-Team Tuition and the A-Game podcast. I grew up with ADHD, went from failing the first 9 years of school to becoming a straight-A student. Since then, I partnered with over 100 schools and helped over 20,000 students become A students through the same method. This podcast is exactly how we've done it. Let's find your A-game. We go into the 2012 Olympic trials. You and I were training together. Remember in 2011, the short course was the last event going in, and I think you were ranked 7th in Australia and I was 8th. But there was a bit of a gap there. And then we went into the Olympics, talk about what it felt like to walk out for that 200 free final, because that was the first event. And I remember you were on the outside lane and what that was like when you just talk us through that race and that moment when you realized you actually made the Olympics at 17.
Yeah, so Olympic trials, if you're in the 100 free or 200 free final, all you have to do is get top 5, sometimes top 6, and you make the relay team. So it's a lot more lenient than the other events, top 2. I was going in lane 8, so I was the last qualifier from the semis going through. I knew I had a pretty tough gig to try and get my hand on the wall in the top, let's say top 6. But yeah, it is what it is. Like you're in a national final, you can't really think about that too much. I remember I dove in, first lap, I felt like an absolute god. Like I couldn't see anyone. I was breathing to the left, so left side lane 8. I'm looking at the wall. And so it felt awesome. Took it out way too hard. I think I was winning, or at least like top 2 for the first 150 meters or 140 meters or something like that. And then heavily paid for it in that last lap, but was able to hang on. I got 6th place, got my hand on the wall, got on the relay team. But yeah, it was really like you'd think it would be a really, really nerve-wracking moment. And like I was nervous. But because I was so young, I was so naive, I was 17, I wasn't expecting to be in a position to make the Olympics at that point in time. So just being in the final was almost like I'd exceeded my expectations anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I just rocked up, dived in, went out too hard, and paid the price. But then, yeah, it paid off. And so, I wish I had a much more vivid realization of just like how big that moment was at the time, and looking back on it, and I can see it every year. Every time we go through an Olympic cycle, I see new people coming along. They're in the final. They're about to make their first team. They're very nervous, and so I wish I had that story. But at that time, it was just, I don't know. Maybe it was just the fact that I didn't expect to be there or anything like that. But it was just it was a go through the motion. Don't expect too much. And then, see how it turns out. I was much more nervous in the 100. So
then we dive into the 100 free.
Yeah.
A few nights later, I got knocked out in the heats. Didn't swim as well as I wanted to. Then you qualify into the final. And for context, this is the year before Australia won the 4x100 freestyle. We had the world champion, James Magnussen, in the race. Then we had James Roberts, who wasn't far behind him.
He was number 2 time-wise.
Matt Target, one of the best freestylers in the world.
Silver from 2008 Olympics.
Matt Aboud
previous
as well.
Record holder.
And then Tommaso DeSogno, who won the junior Pan Pacs. And so he had this, one of the hottest field Australia's ever had in the 100 freestyle. And only 2 years before the 16 years free 100 nationals, I got up in the final, and national age was a week earlier that year. And James Magnussen's birthday was just before it, which meant
I remember that.
That was the first year he was in my category, and that was the 1 year the guy who dominated our age wasn't there, Dan. And I remember I get up in lane 4 against Maggie, and I was like, I'm going to smash this guy. Got to the 50-meter mark in the final, a body length ahead, and then he mowed me down and beat me by 0.1 at the end. And I was like, my one shot.
Yeah.
And so when you got up against Magnussen, then he was like rocketing. And I remember being on the Trans-Tasman team with James, and that was when I was training like psycho volumes, and it had gotten really good. And he told me that he only trains for like 3 months of the year and does footy mainly. And I was like, as if, like, you don't get to this level. And then, then next year he went all in on swimming, and then literally was
became
the
world
fastest in the world.
champion.
So there was like this. Yeah, so there was like this low-key like feud where Maggie stole my gold, and even though I was like good mates with him, and there was still like a frustration there. And then when you came in onto the scene, I was like, oh, I can beat him with Cam. So talk us through.
He obliterated me that comp.
Yeah, but we'll start moving into that next journey.
Yeah.
So talk us through that final, because I remember that was huge. And they all come out, the music's playing, and then it's a dead silent.
Yeah. So that one was the one where I was literally shitting bricks going out to that. We, like you said, it was a stacked race, the most depth we've seen in any 100-meter freestyle at any domestic comp. And we were like, whoever made the relay team was in a good shot to come home with an Olympic medal. And so in my mind, I was thinking, right, if I make this relay team, there's a great shot. I'm coming home with a medal. I might get a swim at a final in the Olympics. And I get to be alongside Eamon Sullivan, James Magnussen, James Roberts, Matt Abu, like Matt Tug, all these huge names of the sport that I grew up watching either you race in the age group category or watching Eamon and Matt Tug and all them through Beijing and onwards. So that was the one where, I didn't want to screw up the race. But also, like, I was again, still pretty tiny. Like, I was 68 kilos, maybe like 5'11", 68. So you can imagine, like, I was a string bean. I'm next to, I think Maggie's 6'5", 6'6", high 90 kilos, maybe 100 kilos. And so, just like the sheer contrast in thinking that I have to get up and race these dudes. And these are just like they're massive dudes.
And he just invented a new way to race the 100.
Yeah,
and was
exactly.
Dominating.
Yeah, and they've come off being world champions as well, both in the individual and the relay. So it was a tall task ahead. And that was the one where, that was pretty much just having the process down pat, knowing that I'm going to be pretty good on the last 50, and just hoping for the best on that first 50 and really just put it all on the line and see where I land in the end. I got fifth, ended up getting fifth in the race. That got me on the relay team. And that was the securing point for making my first Olympics.
100%. That was a magnificent race. You went
48.5,
and that was the fastest ever for a 17-year-old, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Until Kyle Chalmers got it later.
Yeah, until Kyle beat it by over a second.
So then you go through the Olympics, you lead the relay out, lots of good experience there. Then we move into 2013. So I had the pleasure to travel with you after that too. I went over to Spain for 2 weeks and by myself and watched you race there. I remember the 100 free, you're like 50th-ish going in to the heats,
I was very, very, I can't remember exactly, but I was like, no one thought I'd make the semi.
Yeah, and then I remember you made the final and you're next to the Vlad, the Russian guy, who went out in like a world record pace.
Yeah.
And we get up to the final and we get down to the last 5 meters and you're head to head with Magnussen, Adrian, and Cielo, I think. And then you just touched out fourth by 0.1. Yeah. Talk us through that. And that was, you just turned 18.
The 2013 Worlds, they had a pool set up where it was super controversial. There was actually a current in the pool that circled. And so going down one way, you get carried with the current. Going the other way, you go against it, which is fine if you're doing more than one lap. But unfortunately, I was lane one. I was on the side where on the way home, I had to go into the current. So when you're most fatigued, just swimming through the current. I think I like to think the little chip on my shoulder, that definitely affected me. But I was next to Vlad, the Russian guy. He split 21.9 on the first lap, quickest split that has ever happened. Still hasn't been broken. And then coming into the wall, lane one, kind of just happy to be there, not expecting much, and touch the wall and realize I'm 0.17 off a gold. I'm 0.0. I think it was 0.06 off silver and 0.02 off bronze or something like that. And so that was the first I actually have what it takes to maybe win a medal or maybe to be a world champion, 100%. Be an Olympic champion. But I still think it didn't really it didn't set in. It wasn't an immediate okay, I take confidence from this. It was more of that was so close. Like, how did I screw up that finish? It kind of erred on that negative side. But regardless, that was probably the best comp I had internationally up until I quit the sport and came back and did it in a new way recently.
I think it was that event that put you on the world map too, because I remember we traveled afterwards through Europe and with Geordie Harrison as well. Yeah. And then when we went to Prague, Jiri, who was one of the Czech Republic Olympians, let us stay at their AIS equivalent. And all of a sudden on the night we went out, there was 40 athletes that came with us. And everyone's giving you Jaeger.
Yeah. That was back in the day when it was $2 for
100%.
For a Jaeger bomb, and
that was the point where I sat back and I was like, "Whoa, you're going to be
Drinkflation.
huge off the back of this."
Yeah.
Because that's when I think it went from just Australia to the whole world.
Yeah, in the swim community as well. But I wasn't ready for it. Definitely wasn't ready for it on the mental side, which, evolved leading up to Rio, because that only grew more and more going into the Olympics, especially as I started to put down better and better times. I got the textile world record, was going in favourite. And then Rio happened.
So then we dive a year later. I want to jump to one more event before that. And you qualify for the Pan Pacs final. And it's on the Gold Coast. I think it was raining.
Yep.
And you get up, I think you're in lane 3 or 5 from memory. And this is when Phelps had made his comeback. So you're next to Michael Phelps. And you got Magnussen there and Adrian. Talk us through that race. I reckon that was one of the pivotal points that really was like, wow, this is going to be something wild.
Yeah, so this is my favorite. If I like to split my career up into pre and post 2022. This was my favorite race that I ever did in that pre 2022 era. So 100 freestyle, Michael Phelps is back. He retired after London, decided to come back for Rio. This is his first international competition. He's done a bit more sprint training and he's in the 100 free. There's James Magnussen. He was defending silver medalist at the Olympics in London. Nathan Adrian, the defending gold medalist at the Olympics in London, who beat James by 0.01. And then there were other people in that race as well who have been medalists at the World Championships, finalists, been around for a while. And so I went into the race, just, again, stoked to be there. Never thought I'd get to race Michael Phelps in an individual event. And then I had the 2 titans of the 100 freestyle in that race at the same time. I was coming off Commonwealth Games where I lost to James in the 100 there. Swam pretty slow to my liking as well. So it was a little bit of a redemption thing, but off the back of that. And I dived in. I just felt amazing the whole time. I remember I don't feel like I even died in the end. Like in the 100 freestyle, you're meant to fall apart last 20 meters, but just felt like I had that extra gear going into the wall. And ended up winning. So 100%. That's one of the highlights of my entire career, just because of the people who were in the race, being able to race Phelps, who I never thought I would, again, and then coming out and winning the gold on top of that.
Yeah, it's wild, and there's probably, you can count on one hand the amount of human beings that have beaten Michael Phelps ever.
Yeah, I mean,
and you get to be one of them.
Yeah, it's not his main race. It's like his 8th best race. We'll say that. But I'd like to take it.
But he's just that type that wins. That's who
he's a GOAT. He's the GOAT. He's got 23 Olympic gold medals. And he is the GOAT.
And I remember at that time, it was still Magnussen. And so the commentators in the race, I've watched that video so many times. Like, there's times where if I'm going through a tough period and feeling flat, I'll watch some of your wins and get inspiration of it. And in this race, we get to like the 75-meter mark, and everyone's like, Adrian's got it, Phelps has got it, Magnussen's got it. And then with like 10 meters to go, the American guy's like, wait, that's not James, that's Cam. Who's Cam McEvoy?
Yeah. That seems to be
won it.
That's a
like,
trope in my career. Even 2023 world champs, all they're doing is talking about the Americans the whole time. And then I get to like the 30 meters, and then the Americans are like, oh, wait, Cam's actually going to win. So it's
just
not the
fully
only time.
writes you off.
Yeah.
So I reckon that was a pivotal moment. Then you went into 2015, ranked number 1 in the world, ranked number 1 going into the 100 final, and then you get pipped by the Chinese guy at the Chinese event. Talk us through that.
So I lost that world championship by 0.09. So again, 2013, I lost by 0.17. 2015, I lost by 0.09. That's literally 2 blinks, and there's two world championship gold medals gone. So that was really hard to digest. But the 2015 loss was also the fire that lit the success of 2016 in terms of the times I was able to do.
Yep.
So it wasn't all bad, but I remember I felt like absolute hell off the back of that 2015 World Champs.
It was rough to watch because it was like so many years in a row. 2013, 0.1, 2014, 0.1. Then you won against Phelps, but at the lower meet than the Com Games, and then 0.1 again. But I guess the benefit was you're one of the humblest people I know, and off the back of you celebrated with the Chinese guy, and then talk about the wild following you got from Chinese people off the back of that.
So the Chinese guy beat me by 0.09, Ning Zitao. And then I congratulated him. And then that got on TV and it just blew up in China on Weibo, I guess the Chinese Facebook.
You're China's favorite person.
Yeah, it went nuts. So I think within a week I had 100,000. I created a Weibo account the next day, just because I heard all about it, and then 100,000 followers within a week. I ended up two years later racing in China at Beijing in the Water Cube, the 2008 Olympic Stadium. And as I'm walking out from finals, whoever was in charge wrote my name in lights around the water cube.
That's wild.
It was insane. I had to get police escorted out of the water cube. It was very, very insane and quite uncomfortable with how intense it was. They'd rock up at our home as well and give me presents, and it's crazy.
Absolutely. So then we moved to 2016. So at this point I was like, I got a bit fat and I was like, I need to go back to swimming. So I came back to train with you, and I knew I was never going to make the next Olympics, but I was just keen to like be involved in it and be part of it.
Yeah.
And we were training at Bond University there. And I remember there was a change in you that year after getting second, I think, for the third time.
Yeah.
I remember being up in the spa quite a lot with some of the other athletes, and you'd be still in the water doing an extra kilometer in the off season. And that was the season where I just saw you go to a whole different level in terms of what anybody else in the world was doing. Like, talk us through that headspace and what that was like.
So I guess, 2016, I didn't have a break off that 2015 World Champs. I got straight back into it. And for the better half of that season, I basically surrendered to the type of work we're doing. I didn't want to fight against it. It was just basically get in, do what you need to do, don't think about it. A lot of the emotional charge around it dissipated as well. So it wasn't a chore to do it. It was almost just like you do it, and it was just frictionless. It really helped that I started to see results almost instantly. So like even in season competitions, I was dropping best times. I had multiple world number one times before I even hit taper for the Olympic trials in April.
And you were doing some pretty psycho times in training.
Yeah, I was doing crazy stuff in training. And it was that sweet spot where like that was the traditional training method, and I was at that sweet age where you could handle a lot of the general load and a lot of the fat around it that probably didn't need to be done, while also doing the stuff that you needed to do that actually got you better. And so I was in that sweet spot where I wasn't too old to break down from that. I was super motivated off the back of the last multiple years of almost getting to where I wanted to get to. So it was just, those two elements combined basically allowed me to go into Olympic trials and just drop an absolute bomb of a week, both in the 50, the 100 and the 200. It helped me up until then, but that was also part of my, I guess, I wouldn't call it downfall, but that was a part of what happened in falling short in Rio too, because I finished the Olympic trials. I made these big gains, went really well, and I was like, right, that's the mentality that works. I'm going to dive into it even more. I'm going to lean into this further. And so got back into training. That was in April when we had the Olympics in late July. Got back into training in April and then overdid it. So basically had the same mentality, but wanted to do more than what I was doing, wanted to add on more than what I already added on previously. And I remember almost every week, definitely every 2 weeks, I'd come in and get slower, get worse in the water. It would just compound the fatigue. And then it became a flywheel where, because at that point, I'm so in tune with how my body feels in the water, how my body feels generally. I know basically, I can kind of think about how I'm feeling, and I could almost predict what I'm going to do in the water on that session. And if I'm going in knowing that I'm cooked, I'm falling apart, my times are getting slower every 2 weeks, then that flywheel kind of absorbs itself up into your psychology, and then you start to stress out, you start to worry, you start to panic, which then adds more fatigue, adds more stress, and then that comes back into that manifests biologically as well. And then that flywheel just kind of ticks over, and then just slowly takes away your energy. And that's what happened, yeah. So going into Rio, I felt almost like a shell of what I was at the start of the season. Looking back, there's so much you could go on about just the general stuff I was doing in training, the choice of racing program as well, putting on the 200, putting myself up for the 4x2. More context around that is like I dropped the 200 freestyle at the Rio Olympics to focus on the 100 freestyle and the relays, but I was still training for the 200 because I was going to be a part of the 4x200 relay team. And then I get to the Olympics and for some reason they don't put me on the 4x200. So I've just done multiple months of training for an event that's double the distance of my main event, which definitely added to a lot of the workload, a lot of the kind of overcooking myself going into Rio, and I didn't need to. And so, there was just a lot of moving parts that compounded that went into Rio just yet not being what it should have been.
And I remember those lessons hit hard because then going into Paris, I remember you were hyper specific about only doing the 50. There was a part of you initially that was like, should I do the 100? Like, it's my main event. But it was like, no, I'm going to go all in on the 50. We're not going to make that mistake again. And then going into Rio, our grandfather lived for swimming. And he was pretty unwell at that point. Couldn't really. It was hard to move from like the couch to the bed. And you had a great relationship with him. There's lots of we had a lot of time growing up with him. And then 2 weeks before the games, he passed away. And then so you were carrying that, and then at the same time, you've got this like negative loop of like, I know I should be. I need to train harder. You get more tired, get worse results. It creates a new belief, and that's happening. But then at the same time, you've got all the marketing, the hype. Cam McEvoy, #1, fastest in the world by body length. And then I remember going into it, you were like, I don't want to let the country down because Eamon went in #1, the prior Olympics came out second, and then before that, Maggie went in #1, came out second, and you were so focused on, I don't want to let everybody down, as opposed to the excitement of winning and being the best. And talk us through that headspace and what was that like when you actually walked out to the final? Because you were in lane 4, so you still qualified first, but that would have been exceedingly difficult.
Yeah, well, I saw, particularly London 2012, I saw firsthand, James went in, he was favourite in the 100 freestyle. He lost by 0.01. He got a silver medal at the Olympics, which is insane in and of itself. And it was he couldn't have lost by a smaller margin. Yet the media response and the general public's response was to virtually crucify him. And I know that was off the back of, I guess, how he presented himself going into it. He was basically like, I am certainly winning this. And there was an over exuding of confidence, but that's what he needed to step up and do it. And it just fell short on the day. And just seeing that level of crucifixion by the entire Australian public for someone who just tried and did their best and didn't quite reach it that was insane. I saw that firsthand watching him on deck off the back of that around London, particularly in the year afterwards as well. And just like seeing that and thinking, okay, even if I get second at the Olympics here, which for me would be at that point still a dream come true, I'm going to potentially go through what he went through. So that was a massive fear point that was definitely wasn't at the back of my mind. It was very close to the front of my mind. And then also, around the training and how physically prepared I felt. I felt like a different person physically leading into Rio than I was in the earlier parts of the season. Being a very feel-based athlete and being quite in tune with how the body's feeling, that basically played its largest toll because I like to dive in and know exactly what the stroke's going to feel like, how the race is going to unfold, when the lactic acid is going to start to creep its way into my mind. And at that point, it was basically like I'd roll dice, and you didn't know what was going to happen when you dived in. So that played a huge role on my mind. And also, this goes back even before, like much before Rio as well. But I also had my initial ideas about how training could be improved, different ways that I could do things differently and get better. Stuff that I was doing that I knew intuitively that didn't have any transfer. It was just doing it for the sake of doing it. And again, being a perfectionist, being someone who wants to, I guess, squeeze as much juice out of what I'm doing, I wanted it to be as best it could. And so knowing that I'm doing stuff that didn't make sense as well, was super frustrating. Trying to voice my opinion and basically having it not be heard was, again, super frustrating. And so, it was just so many moving parts going into it. So I walked out into that final. I'd done the heat, the semi. Both times I dived in, it felt way different to what I thought it would feel like. So I was already wigging out in terms of, okay, what's this going to feel like? I slept terribly the night before. So Rio, the race times were put back a couple of hours to be prime time in US. And so I think the 100 freestyle was like midnight or something like that. We'd get home at 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m. after drug testing, after the semis. After having dinner, we'd go to sleep. 2 hours later, the rest of the Oz team is up. You can hear them. You're trying to sleep through it. I'm nervous as hell about this race coming up. So I slept terribly. I knew I was going to, feel off in the race. And so it was just like, okay, what am I walking into? What is happening? And it was a feeling of impending doom, which is absolutely not what you want to have going into an Olympic final. So
well, there's millions and millions of people watching it, and the whole of Australia's pinned their hope on you in that, and it's the blue ribbon event.
Yeah. Then there was a ton of marketing going into it. I think we got the numbers a little bit later, and I'm pretty sure the reach of that 100 freestyle hit 1 billion streams or something like that.
Yeah, wow.
Which is like across like all the different media and stuff, which is insane to think about. And so at that time, I was pretty nervous.
Yeah, that's like probably up there with some of the most extreme pressure points you can ever be in.
Yep.
And jumping back to that concept of starting to think there's a better way to do this, I remember we were discussing that through 2015. When I first came back after I'd done powerlifting for a number of years, and 6 weeks I was still 12 kilos of weight and got second at the state title and did a PB.
Yeah.
And then the culture of the squad was, oh, great, now wait
Imagine
what will happen
what you
when
can
you
do
flog
when you
yourself.
do all of this stuff. Yeah.
And I never beat that time again.
Yeah.
And so we were starting to do that. I remember there was one particular coach earlier on who you wrote up a full manifesto plan and booked a time to meet with him and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And he tore it up in front of you and said, you do it my way.
Yeah.
And that's what Australian swimming culture was like. It was like the moment you wanted to do something that wasn't extreme hard work, it was considered lazy.
Yeah.
And that you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, and you're lacking character.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't completely abide by the direction in which the coach wants without any say, you're basically, it's blasphemy within the sport. It's basically like they're the bus driver, you get on, you get off, you have no say. Which, if you contextualize that into a regular job, like say you've studied, gone to uni, you got all your qualifications, you get a job, you're an entry-level person at a job. First year, that's fine. You're learning the ropes, that's all good. But after a number of years, you kind of want to grow within the company. You want to take on more responsibility. You want to be more independent. You want to maybe develop a niche role that you can expand out and create your own branch. That's very normal within the entire world with pretty much any system you go into. In swimming, in sport, but particularly in swimming, you get that entry role and that's it. That's your ceiling. And if you have any intention to want to go above that, if you want to grow as an athlete, if you want to start to collaborate alongside maybe different training ideas or anything like that, not only is it frowned upon, but it's actively pushed back against as a strong firewall.
Seen as like offensive.
Yeah, and then they can't. Yeah, the community pushes back in the sense and puts you in this box where like the amount of like comments around myself, particularly this was 2021. I was very vocal about the different type of training I wanted to do at this point, but I had no way to do it, no one to help me do it. And so I was still doing the regular training, but I was vocally against it. And some of the comments that the coaches were saying on pool deck, like 2 weeks out from the Olympics, was like there was a new swimmer on the team. He was 17, first introduction to the swim team. And they'd come up to him and be like, yeah, see that guy over there? He used to be the fastest swimmer in the world, but now look at him. And that's what happens when you think you know everything. And like just shit like that was just being thrown around over and over. Even when I came back before the 2023 World Champs, some coaches pulled the coach who I was working alongside with aside and basically said, "Oh, you got to be careful with Cam. Like he wants to have a say, and you've got to really beat that out of him, and you got to push that back and make sure that he knows you're in charge." And it's like I'm 29 at that age. I've been on the national team since 2012, and that's the type of response that you get. So yeah, it's disgusting.
And most coaches were prior athletes who maybe made semis and heats, and then upskilled from there. And so like the level of experience and knowledge you would have is unrivaled. Yeah,
well, and there's this odd thought around the fact that if you are a swimmer, you have no competence or ability in being able to understand the intricacies of how training is conducted. And so you should just rock up, jump on the conveyor belt, do what you're told, and do it as hard as you can. And if you don't follow those rules, then not only are you going to fail, but you lack character on a personal level.
In the next episode, Hayden unpacks the emotional turning points, the tough losses, the moments Cam still celebrated his teammates, the point where he almost quit swimming, and finding his motivation again to building a comeback plan and eventually winning gold medal at the Olympics. Join us in the next episode to improve your A game.